Welcome to the At Leisure Podcast. This is a show about sports, video games, movies, and just basically the things we do with our leisure time. My name is Brett, and you might have gathered from the title, but we're going to take a quick break from our preview series because college football is in a bit of upheaval right now, that we've noticed. Thankfully, our new guest is a Realignment wizard and fellow Texas Tech fan, Cody, or you might know him better from his Twitter handle, Dragon of the West Texas. Thanks for joining the show, man.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here. How you doing, bud?
Good. I'm excited. We're finally on a podcast together. I've been trying to get you to come on for a while. So with how crazy things have been, this podcast could go out of date in an instant. So if you want to, if you're listening, you can check the time codes in the description to make sure you're listening to the relevant topics. But Cody, let's just start with what we know. On August 3rd, Colorado is joining the Big 12. How big of a deal is this? Are they a good addition?
Oh, man, Colorado is a great addition, man. And first off, welcome back and welcome home, old friend. It's great that Colorado is joining back with us, and they get to join back and be with great company without the University of Texas. So I'm just looking forward to the happiness that we're going to have with them being removed. So I hope and I know that Colorado probably feels the same way. So welcome home, Colorado. Great to have you back.
Do you actually have fond memories of them? Because, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember them very well. I know that they were in the Big 12, obviously, when we were at our peak, but I don't remember playing them or having any memories of, a big game against them or anything.
No, and the reason you don't is because, man, we grew up being spoiled part of the Mike Leach era, and so we weren't losing to them when we were playing them, so you don't remember anything from them. But no, man, I really don't, but still grateful to have them back, and, glad that we were able to pry them away from less company. So,
do you buy the fact that Coach Prime was a big reason why we took Colorado back?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I am buying into his stock. I am buying into the hype 100%. And I hope he can turn that program around. What he can do with the best situation for Colorado right now is if you do super well in his first season, exiting the Pac-12, how could you be unhappy with that if you're a Colorado fan? If you go over 50% in conference games with Coach Prime in your first season, yeah, that's going to be huge. If they win more than 2 games with Coach Prime, I feel like that'll be an improvement. So I don't know how low we need to set the bar with their expectations. But, man, I buy the hype. I believe the effect, and I hope he's going to be able to turn that program around.
See, and I buy the hype for sure, but also it feels a little short-sighted if we're inviting them for Coach Prime, because it's that guy's going to be out of there as soon as he
gets success. No, yeah. I'm with you on that 100%. But it just takes somebody like that to spark the charge that can, completely change a team. So
yeah, and I think the Colorado market is a big deal. I think that's a big draw, and I think it's a good add too. It's just weird because I knew as soon as it happened, the Pac-12 was going to talk about how bad Colorado's been in football, and it's yeah, they have been. It's kind of a weird, odd
It's
addition.
So funny how fast the Pac-12 on Twitter has turned from Colorado as a stable member, Colorado is a great member, we're happy to have them, to how low on the totem pole that they were just thrown into, or when the comparison started changing with that as soon as they got, rumors of them joining the Big 12. But man, Denver is a great market. Oh, I know. I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying that some of them are
you gotta do
a
what
little
you
bit
gotta
more
do
than what we would do. So,
Yeah.
But man, yeah, that Denver market, that's good. That's gonna be a great one to have back. So, top 30 city, top 20 TV market, good fan base. Hopefully, Coach Prime gets that spark back, because that is historically a great football program.
And lately, there's been a lot of so obviously there's been rumors, but things seem to really be heating up to have Arizona join the Big 12 also. And then as soon as that kind of came out, the Big 10 said, hey, they're kind of changing their mind. Maybe they are looking to expand. You've got Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Stanford, yeah.
Cal and Stanford.
Yeah, and so if the Big 10 definitely takes those, then do you think we get the 4 corners? What is your prediction about that? Because it's crazy right now. Is the Pac-12 about to fold?
Oh, Pac-12 is dead in the water. We all knew that for a while now. And, man, let me ask you this, because we've been dealing with this for 2 years now. But, man, I'm really starting to get tired of conference realignment.
Dude, I'm sick of it. I don't even like it.
It's ruining the sport of college football. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Getting away with good rivalries just for money.
The regionality of college football just exploding,
Absolutely. Arizona would be huge. I think their demographics for sports fit the Big 12 so well. That would be huge. Also, man, that Arizona market with Tucson and Phoenix, those are both 2 huge TV markets. So the money that drives everything right now. That would be the best addition I think out there currently is Arizona. Shoot, I'd love to get, Oregon or Washington if they were available, absolutely, but I do think that they're going to flirt and go with the Big Ten. Actually, did you see? I think this was forgive me if I'm shouting out Jason Shear when it shouldn't be him, but I've seen a lot of people today all over Twitter talking about how that Oregon and Washington, Cal, and Stanford are willing to take 50% shares with their first contract with the Big Ten, which would be less money than what the current Big 12 is offering. And I just thought, why would your fan bases want that? But I guess, for a later day value, they're going to want it
Yeah.
for the contract that comes in 10 years or 12 years or however how long that contract would be is. But I truly think if your brand is big enough, such as Oregon or Washington, why would you not take more money now with the Big 12? We know that the exceptions of when the Big Ten comes calling with the full 100% share, you hop up there, and in the time then, you're still within good company. But that's just my biased Big 12 apologist opinion. So,
Well, I agree. I think probably their thought is we've got a ceiling. Like we can be the front runners for a conference, but that only gets us so far. They probably don't think that they can carry like being part of a conference with Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and all the money that they bring in. It's like Oregon can't get there. So if they're the flagship of a conference, they're never going to be able to earn the same amount of money as they can in the Big Ten because of those other schools. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, and I honestly think that, I think that they could be one of the top Big 12 teams, and how much fun would that have been? But
I'm with you on both of those points there 100%. Let me ask you this for the knowledge that you know about Oregon and Washington. Which of those two programs do you think is better? Like if you had to choose one to join the Big 12, what team would you choose of those two out of Oregon and Washington, and why?
The way you said it makes me second guess it, but definitely pick Oregon. I know Oregon fans, like there's a big reach with I guess it's the Nike deal, right? That they signed with them.
How big
really,
do you think? I'm with you, man. And the owner of Nike, is a huge donor for Oregon because I think he's an alumni,
right?
Phil Knight. How big do you think Oregon football stadium's capacity is?
75,000.
So that's closer to what Washington's is, which is 70,000, which currently is the biggest number in the Pac-12 of the 9 remaining teams. Oregon's stadium capacity is 54,000 seats.
Wow, that's shocking.
Yeah, no, that's not that big. I mean, that's a relative term apparently, but I mean, if those two teams joined the Big 12, Oregon would have the 7th or the 8th largest stadium out of all those teams right there. So for a brand that I thought was also super huge, and I've seen, a couple of their games on Pac-12 at dark, and they had a good crowd. I'm not, discounting what 54,000 people can sound and look like on TV, but man, those must have been good angles because it's not that big of a stadium.
Yeah.
So if they're thinking that they're going to waltz into the Big Ten and play in a stadium half the size of, the Big House or half the size of Penn State or Ohio State, I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, counterpoint is, we know that there are tangibles, and I think they would compete with both.
Yeah.
Because I don't think where the Big Ten is for a football product, even with their best schools, are too much higher than what we're putting out in the Big 12. And TCU this past year was our greatest example.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But they just make more money, and that's what's driving everything right now.
Absolutely.
Also, did you see Florida State today? Their trustees were talking about how they are ready to leave the ACC. They don't want anything to do with it. It's not about whether they're going to leave. It's about when. And I'm like, golly, what are we talking about here? Like,
why, if you're a Florida State fan, our question, how would the SEC, how do you let Florida State and Clemson, how do you let those two programs go when they're right in your region, in the heart of the SEC, and you let them go to the Big Ten, your biggest current rival right now? How do you let that happen?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Man, again, just going back to like, this is just, and all the reports, just like what you're talking about, man, like these have been swirling for a while, and man, this stuff takes so long, we're just going to be hearing about it. I think the amount of clicks that this is generating on Twitter right now is probably part of the reason that people are just tweeting about it so much, and that's why so many people are just, if you throw enough crap, something's going to stick, man.
And it's crazy to think back to about how Texas and OU pretty much triggered all of this. It's like, why is this happening? Because they moved, and now it's just a domino effect.
So you said Texas and OU, but there's actually, in my opinion, the one catalyst that started all of this, which was Texas back in 2009 to 2010, right before the Longhorn Network
Oh,
went up.
yeah.
When the
Yeah.
Pac-12 had their best market, they started. Texas reached out to the Pac-12 and started flirting with them about joining them, and that's what started everything. So if we have one university, one person to blame for all of this right now, I think it's obvious that it's Texas. So thank you to the terrible people in the 40 acres in Austin, Texas now. And if you hate it, if you need somewhere to put that hate, I know where my finger's pointing. But man, going back to how Texas started this is, they started flirting with the Pac-12 about bringing over Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. But let me ask you this right here, because back in 2009, 2010, when all of this first started happening, Pac-12 was in the best position for a football conference. And man, 12 years, 13 years later, local or at, that conference is totally collapsing. So that's crazy that turnaround of 13 years can be so, from the top to the
Wild.
bottom, how far the mighty has fallen, how far they have fallen. But also, the Pac-12 denied the 4 editions of Texas Tech, Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State because they didn't see enough value, which is hilarious now.
Man,
But,
what a crazy turnaround.
but the people in Austin, Texas refuse to say that we are a rival or that we have a rivalry. But at their peak in 2009, when they went calling to the Pac-12 to try to make a deal, they were bargaining with us on their behalf. Texas was driving this conference realignment talks, and they were including us at the table back at the time. So to say that we aren't a rival, man,
They were wanting to bring us over.
y'all were planning on bringing it. So I just like to say, I know they talk a whole lot more about the Aggies than they talk about us, but we have that.
But we're there.
At the time we were there, man. And at the time, the Aggies were running the opposite direction, and they didn't want anything to do with them, and they were going to bring us to show them that we were a better rival than them. So that's kind of a dig at both schools. And I hope that made any sense.
So how are you how should the Big 12 feel towards these teams, OU, Texas, and how do you think the SEC is feeling towards these two teams?
We have 4 pillars of this situation right here. We have 2 for the SEC and 2 for the Big 12. Now, those 2 separate columns for each of those conferences are set up as best case scenario, worst case scenario. So let's talk about the SEC's best case scenario for the departure in the final season of Texas and Oklahoma. And that's for both of those 2 programs to meet in the championship game and the Big 12 championship and to go out only losing to maybe one of each other's. That's an absolute, best case scenario. And that's what I'd like to think that the people in the SEC would be rooting for. But man, the SEC on Twitter, they don't want anything to do with Texas or Oklahoma already. There's some, hey, welcome to the SEC type of stuff. But man, are you telling me that there's anybody in the SEC right now that's going to be rooting for Texas or Oklahoma in this season? I don't know. But for the name of, your conference, I guess you could be rooting for them.
I love listening to them in media days because so many questions were about Texas and OU, and they were sick of it, man. They were tired of answering questions about them.
Man, that picture of the meme of Captain Jack Sparrow stepping right off of the boat of a sinking ship onto the dock? That is Texas trying to ruin the Big 12 and SEC. They are coming to you.
I will say, thank goodness we have Brett Yormark, man. We have rebounded. Like, there was a chance that we could have got Washington, Oregon, and if we'd have had that collection of schools after losing Texas and OU, I mean, what he's done already is incredible, but what it looks like might happen is it's hard to believe, because when Texas and OU left, I wanted to join the Pac-12 for stability, and now it's flip-flopped. It's like, it's crazy
how fast it changed from your opinion from that was 2 years ago. But man,
yeah,
the common denominator in what you're going right there is you are right, man. Brett Yormark is the savior of the Big 12. That confident, suave, great dude. I absolutely love Brett Yormark, and he has put us in a great position. And the reason stability goes along with Brett Yormark, because that is the culture that he has built. And we are so grateful because, man, Bob Bowlesby, oh my goodness, we would be in worse position in the Pac-12 right now if he was still around. There was a TCU fan the other day on Twitter that was arguing to me about how Bob Bowlesby was not a capital B-U-M. Yo, Bob Bowlesby is a bum. I haven't seen a supporting document or any shred of evidence out there about how he's not a bum, because that dude fumbled the bag 30 times, and we have only thrived without him. So
it is crazy
thank
to
you,
think.
Brett Yormark.
It's crazy to think of how much has happened since Yormark's come in. And it was like, what was Bob Bowlesby doing? Like, what was his job?
I think our expectations were so low that Brett Yormark really has thrived so much more because of how low the bar was set. So,
Not
man, whenever his contract comes up, we need to give him a blank check and do anything to make him happy, because he is changing the trajectory of college football conference realignment more than ESPN or Fox are. And, they were the biggest drivers with the University of Texas out there, which caused all this. So,
yeah, and I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but I think the best move he made was getting that TV media deal a year early and kind of undercutting the Pac-12, because if we hadn't done that, we'd have been on no solid footing, just like they are, and it's such a smart
absolutely.
move, because there was such a small, like, there's like a space for college football, and there was a small piece of pie for one team or one conference to get, and he got it versus the Pac-12, and then that left the Pac-12 kind of out there to dry, and he didn't have to do that. It's just such forethought by him. Genius.
Oh,
move.
100%, man. And even with the coming in with the pre-notions of he knew that he wanted to expand even before at the time. Because, I mean, whenever he made those deals with ESPN and Fox about bringing on other teams, that was before the UCLA and USC had left, like when we had that deal. So to see that, the visionary skills that you have to have, man, Brett Yormark, great guy.
Yeah, it's been fun to. I've hated realignment, but it's been fun to have competent leadership at the top.
After 25 years or however many years Bob Bowlesby with us, man, to really see what incompetency looks like.
Good to be able to compare him to the Pac-12 leadership and just be like such a stark contrast of like, okay, here's how you do it, here's how you don't do it. But back to, I guess, Big 12 talk. How do you feel like Texas and OU will do this year? Like, and going forward, like, part of the SEC, like, do you think this move will help them, hurt them? I mean, keep them pretty much pat where they are?
So going back to, we answered the two questions of what's the best and the worst outcome for the SEC.
For this year, right?
Is for this year only, yes.
Yeah.
And so for this year only, the two pillars that the Big 12 should be supporting on is we got to pray that they lose every game. We need to send
right.
them out with their tails between their legs, man. I'm hoping that they lose every single conference game, and that's what I think everybody in the Big 12 should be rooting for. But, man, going forward, I think you would have to be a delusional Texas fan or a delusional Oklahoma fan to think that you're going to waltz into the SEC and, finish top four.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them will. I mean, I know we're only in the second year of Brent Venables, but if we're going off of his first year's success, there wasn't a whole lot of it. And I think they're going to have a tough season this year. And I think Texas is also going to have a tough season this year. And I hope I'm right, man. I hope both of those programs struggle this year in the Big 12. And I hope the Big 12 just puts the hurt on them and gives them a nice gift on the way out.
It's hard for me to say this, but it almost feels like Texas has more momentum, more chance of having success than OU does. And that's so backwards because OU's just been so dominant in the Big 12 for so long. But having one bad season, getting a new coach in right as you're moving into the toughest conference seems like a tall task. And Texas, on the other hand, has got some consistency finally, and they've got some players that they haven't quite lived up to it yet, but they've got high expectations. I just feel like both teams right now will go into the SEC and they'll probably be mid-tier, like South Carolina level. And I don't know if I see them growing past that. Like, sure, you'll have money, but it's like, I don't know. You've put yourself in like OU's schedule for 2024 is crazy difficult. Like they play all the legit SEC teams, like they're not getting like Ole Miss and Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. They're not getting the teams that
Kentucky,
Missouris. They're not getting the teams that are like riding the SEC mantle of like, well, we're in the SEC, we're so good. They're actually playing like Alabama, Georgia, just the top tier teams, and it's like
it makes sense, man, because the first year that they walk into the SEC, it makes the SEC look better if they do
do bad, yeah.
So that's what it is. But man, let's talk about going back to 2011. People in College Station and people up in Missouri thought the same thing was going to happen, and their first 2 years in the SEC were the two best years that either of those programs had, and
that is true.
They've come back, quite a bit. So I think, and I mean, Texas already recruits at such a high level that, going into the SEC, I'm sure that their recruiting program is just selling that 100% of every single word that comes out of their mouth there. So I imagine they might have a little bit of a bump, but I mean, they've already been having, a top 10
I
recruiting class for
agree.
the
Yeah,
past 20 years. So,
it's
and
like,
what have
what
they
is this
done
going
with
to
it?
do for
So,
you? Yeah.
yeah, underachieving, man. That's what you want to do if you want to go to Texas. So, but I think that's right, man. But I think they're probably going to struggle. I saw the hot list today that somebody made. It might have been Big Game Boomer, but man, they talked about how like Brent Venables, and it makes sense. He's a top 10 hottest coach on the seat right now, on the hot seat. So,
That's
man,
crazy.
I respected him so much at Clemson, and I'm glad that he really did wait for a program to be worth his time to come over. And I think Oklahoma's a great program historically, and that'd be a great job to get. But man, I don't think he's a great fit. And
So far, nah, he's not.
and again, all of my bases right here are off of his first season.
Hmm.
So
And
I
he
mean,
did
but I
get, he kind of got a bear cupboard. So, give him a few years to get his players in. But so far, it doesn't look great. At OU, it's pretty incredible to only win 6 games.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's not like he inherited a team that didn't win 10 games the year before, even though that they lost their quarterback. They had a nice
Well,
one
they
coming in with
lost.
Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, they lost a lot, but still, like they were seventh coming into the season. It's like you still
Yeah,
had talent.
yeah. And what Lincoln Riley has done over at USC, man, that's a great coach over there.
Yeah, it is. Well, so what do we think the best landscape for college football is after all this settles? Like, what's best case scenario for college football in general?
Best case scenario is we stop funneling all this money to these massive networks, and we, the fans, take over and actually choose realignment, and we go back to where conferences were 20 years ago. But
But that's not what you think is going to happen, right?
no, that's not what I think is going to happen, and not like I really want that much either. I think we're going to have 3 super conferences. I mean, I think we're going to learn a lot in the next 2 months about what happens with the ACC. I mean, that's just such a pillar or a domino effect that's going to happen if Florida State or
Hmm.
Clemson gets out of that.
Can't they
So,
not though?
so again, I don't read contracts, and I'm not an expert of anything, so I don't know. But I mean, from going off of Twitter, being a Twitter expert right now,
Right.
watching all the stuff that like Florida legislation is going through and like ripping it apart, like you have state personnel actually commenting on this. They're doing something, and I don't think it's worth their time. But again, going back to my
They're
theory, maybe it's
trying.
just all for the
Yeah.
clicks, but I think they're definitely trying. And I think, as you said it earlier, we saw somebody that tweeted, it's just a matter of time. Not it's going to happen. It's just when it's going to happen.
It's wild that the ACC signed a contract that long to begin with. Like it's just
At,
bad business.
everything is a relative term. And just like when the Big 12 added the 4 new schools, those were the best 4 programs at the time. Just like when A&M and Missouri joined the SEC at the time, those were the best programs at the time to add. And so realignment is just timing for who's available. Like that's all it is right now. And so the future's uncertain, man. I want to be excited. I want to be super excited for the possibility of getting some of those other teams outside of Florida State and Clemson from the ACC. I think there's some really good programs out there, such as Pitt and Louisville. Love to have those 2 join the Big 12, but time will tell, man. Time will tell. But I think there are some real quality programs out there. My Big 12 bias for my independent research from my massive Excel sheet that I've shared with you that I've been making.
I love that thing.
Man, I got that thing pulled up, and my basis and a lot of the points that I've been driving on Twitter recently is stadium capacity of 60,000 or more. And for football, I only want to add schools with that, except with the exception of Arizona, because Arizona is at 57,000, which is 3,000
Pretty
just
close.
below that.
Yeah.
But again, it makes a big difference, man. If we looked at conferences by the number of 60,000 capacity stadiums plus, the Big 12 has 5 with BYU, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and West Virginia. The current Pac-12 9 schools, 2. There are 2 stadiums there that have more than 60,000, and that's Washington and Cal. I had no idea how big. Yeah, Cal Berkeley, man.
I thought they didn't care about football.
Oh, well, they don't. They don't. Their numbers were embarrassing for this past year for how many people didn't show up to those games. But yeah, they got a big stadium, 63,000 seats. But hey, man,
It's pretty big.
60,000 is the threshold. So, man, the SEC has 16 teams, right?
Yeah.
15 of those 16 teams have a stadium capacity of 60,000. Can you guess which is the only that doesn't?
Vandy?
Vanderbilt, correct,
Yeah,
man. And yeah, dude, Big Ten, they have 10 teams, and the ACC currently has 7. But man, once Clemson and Florida State joins the Big Ten, man, that's 12 teams compared to the SEC's 15 teams. And those other 5 stadiums, man, which are Miami, Pitt, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Louisville, those would be great programs to get into the
Dad.
Big 12, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's going back to conference realignment. When it goes to the future, man, I think outside of Arizona, I think you wait for the ACC to fall apart,
Really?
just to see
You
what's
don't
out
get any of
there.
these other Pac-12 schools?
Again, it's all about timing. And if Arizona State and Utah want to drag their feet out, that's the risk that I think they currently have going against them. If they wanted to commit right now, a month ago, a couple weeks ago, shoot, a week ago, I was all in for Four Corners. But now with the talk about Florida State, doing something soon, as soon as this week, that would be something to keep an eye on. And if I'm a Utah or if I'm a Arizona State fan right now,
Just take the deal.
you're take the deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you run the risk, man, there's a chance you are left behind. That
Yeah.
I really fear that will happen to Washington State and Oregon State, and that's just such a sad
Sucks.
two programs that did nothing wrong. Great fan bases, good people,
Yeah. It
great
just makes me
college
think
towns.
of when we were folding, like when we were possibly folding. And it was like,
Oh,
people are going to say that about Tech and Oklahoma State and like all the schools that didn't get into the big new conferences.
the new super conferences. No, I'm with you,
Uh-huh.
man. I'm with you, man. And going back to the future of conference realignment, we're heading. Say we have 3, right? Say it's the Big 12, the SEC, Big 10, right? Yeah, all the both of those other collapsed. Well, 10 to 12 years from then, it's just going to be the next super conference. And when I'm talking about stadium capacities of 60,000, it's going to be those that have 90,000 plus, which is like, I think, 12 or 16 teams currently. So it's just, we're going towards the super conference. That's what all this is. This is just a domino effect that will eventually be led down to that. And that's going to ruin college football. And more than it currently already is falling apart.
It's already moving towards semi-pro, which is not terrible in a way, but at the same time, it's like when you start losing, like when it starts shrinking, how many schools are actually playing competitive football, then it sucks. What makes college football great is just the coast to coastness of it, the underdog versus the Goliath
powerhouse.
Yeah, just a bunch of things that make college unique. Kind of
rivalries,
regionality,
small rivalries outside of your 5-10 biggest games of the year. No, I'm with you, and it's sad. It's sad, man, because college football is such a beautiful sport, and there are just people out there that don't appreciate it.
Yeah,
the way that it should.
I think the best thing for the college football landscape, if once it settles down, is if we can avoid the Power 2, like we're talking about, making sure that there's still like 4 at least conferences that are of power status. They don't all have to be making the same amount of money, obviously, but making enough money that they can stay competitive and be in like the college football playoff. That I think we should keep at 12 teams and make sure that there's still automatic bids for the 4 or 5 conferences. Yep. And if we can keep those things together, I think it'll still make it fun, still make it feel like college football in a lot of ways. I think also if we could somehow, I don't think this is possible, but if there's some way we could regulate how much teams got to spend on their rosters, like give it a salary cap almost, it would keep the competitive parity. It would help that a little bit. No way to do that, but if I was in charge, I would be trying to find a way to give teams like a salary cap.
Well, I think that's a good point, and I agree with you in theory, but as a counterpoint, man, if we look at our comparison at the MLB, the Yankees spend more than anybody, and when was the last time they had a championship?
Well, that's what's happening in college football right now in general. Like that's how it's always been. It's like Alabama, once they started winning, had more money, they had more resources, they got the better recruits. That's what's happening now too. But I think that if you don't want it to be driven so much by money, you have to put a regulation on it so that schools aren't thinking like, well, if I don't move to the super conference, my team will not be competitive, because we will not have the money to get the players that we need. And I think that somehow putting a cap on it is the only way to keep teams from being so money hungry that they feel like they have to move.
With such a competitive sport, because even before NIL was introduced, there were still cheating. There were still ways that any university is going to do it. So I don't think adding a cap is going to stop any of that, because all all universities that have had,
disincentivize it.
yeah.
That's all I'm going for, because obviously every rule gets broken, but in the NFL they have a salary cap and they stick to it, and that's because they're governed by people that have investment in the NFL. It's like,
Did you see how Aaron Rodgers just restructured his contract, where he's getting like $1 million this year and $70 million next year with the Jets? I truly do. I've been following and I've been trying to keep up with that stuff, man. I do not understand how the salary cap in the NFL works. Like how they can do that. Like, this doesn't make any sense, but
that's what
somehow
I'm
they
saying.
do.
It's probably impossible to regulate, and there's no way that the SEC would put a governing body over them that would enforce the salary cap.
Limit them. Yeah. No,
Right.
If anybody's driving this, it's not going to be the Big Ten or
Exactly.
the SEC.
So that's what I'm saying, is like, it's a dream scenario, but that would be awesome. I think those other two things that I said are doable. This one is not, but that's what I would love. And just somehow we got to keep interest in college football coast to coast. I think something that makes it so great is just how I can wake up at 11 and watch college football until 12 p.m. and all the games be meaningful.
And brother, we are 4 Saturdays away. We are 4 Saturdays away, man. This has been the longest off season I can remember, man. I'm so excited for the season. But man, and I agree with you. Like, I'm not disagreeing with anything you said today. We have passionate fan bases all across the country, so it doesn't matter if we were playing in the Mountain West or if we were playing in the SEC. Man, we're still going to wake up at 11 a.m. and we're going to watch those games. We're going to be at those games, and we're going to be rooting and cheering for our teams as best we can. And I'm not saying, the national exposure that you're talking about isn't nice, but we're a great fan base. Texas Tech has a great fan base, and all of the schools in the Big 12 have great fan bases. So it doesn't matter where we're playing or where we're playing at. Dirt field or a cotton field, actually in the field, man, we would watch that. We'd show up.
You're not wrong. I just want my son to want to do that. It's like, if we keep these like schools intact the way that they are, like, you can share how great they are, like,
oh goodness.
That's what makes it so much fun. It's almost like a gospel.
Man, college football religion.
It's just fun. It's fun, and I hope it settles down and we can still love college football. And man, is there anything else you want to talk about?
So when I was making my independent research Excel sheet, where I was just researching all of Power 5 schools and all of the ones that during the first talk of expansion 2 years ago, just all of the lists of the names of schools that were added to the Big 12, man, I came across just looking up, stadium capacities for football, basketball, and baseball, and also looking up like lists that like Forbes put out about football value ranks and basketball ranks and kind of stuff like that. And so it was able to help me compile a list of schools that I thought were going to be the best fit for the Big 12. And man, this was, my opinion that I thought was set in stone prior to being completely changed by my current opinion of Brett Yormark being the greatest person ever right now. But man, my two schools that I really wanted in that I thought were the best fits. Now, looking back, I realized that I was glaringly wrong because I trust Brett Yormark, and I definitely think now that I have a little bit of osmosis of being around these fan bases and learning what they've had to offer with our new 4 schools, which were my next 4 choices, and 2 of these programs were in our 4 choices whenever we knew that we were expanding 4. But man, my 2 teams that were my number 1 and 2 picks were South Florida and Memphis. But man,
South Florida.
Yeah, man, their stadium capacity is 68,000 for their football team. But I didn't realize when I was looking this up that they play at Raymond James Stadium, which is home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's not
theirs.
So, but man, learning that like Jones AT&T Stadium is not that far behind the size of an NFL team. And I'm sure there are smaller stadiums out there too in the NFL that I don't know about. But man, I thought all NFL stadiums were 100,000 plus, but Raymond James 68,000, man.
That's what makes the SEC so impressive. Just the amount of size and the amount of support that they have is
absolutely. Yeah, those stadiums are pretty big. They got some big ones out there, man. And yeah, dude, Memphis, I still think would be a fantastic ad when it comes to what they've done historically with basketball. That's a great program, and I feel so bad for any Memphis fan out there right now. I really think that they would be a great program. And have you seen they just dropped renderings of their new football stadium? Which, oh man, I gotta look it up right quick. I want to say they were at like at 58,000 or 50,000, but they are currently expanding their stadium to sit 65,000, which would be a great addition. That actually would be the biggest stadium if they joined the Big 12 by 1,000 seats right now, which BYU currently holds at 64,000. 65,000 would be
be
the
the
biggest.
biggest?
Would be the biggest, yeah.
Dang, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, man, that
You gotta-
was during my independent research. It was a little bit humbling to see this going off of stadium size, stadium capacity. That was a
This-
humbling thing, just seeing
the support. Yeah.
where we stack up as Texas Tech stacks up on a numerical system, where we stack up against the rest of the nation, and that football capacity number for our fan base, which I think is so passionate, it is so underwhelming at 60,000. But hey, there are great programs out there, just like Oregon that we talked about earlier, that have smaller stadiums and that they're still competing at, the highest level. Also, shout out to Amon G. Carter Stadium, to our friends in Fort Worth, because that's a small stadium with 50,000 seats, but they reached the national championship game last year. So when you can do more with less, that's still a great sign, because that's what we have to combat in those like Texas, who does less with more. So yeah, USF, South Florida, and Memphis were my top two candidates, followed by the four that joined. But man, I thought those would be great additions. But in Brett Yormark we trust, so I'm not upset with missing out on those.
Fascinated to see how this season plays out with these four new teams. Like, how competitive will they be? I mean, I know everyone's high on UCF is probably the best one. I think BYU is going to be the best one of the new schools. But
in the long run, or in this first season?
In this first season, I'm definitely buying stock in UCF as a future contender for just because their location, and they just got a lot going for them.
Florida has great recruiting, man. I'm the highest. My highest, I think, the lowest floor out of all the teams right now is most certainly UCF. I think, man, you have a coach with Power 5 experience in Gus Malzahn. They're recruiting at a high level right now. They have good players. Gus Malzahn is a great coach, and he evaluates talent super greatly. BYU, I think, is my number 2 team for where I would buy stock in for future programs. But, man, I know that they had a lot of turnover this past year for just people graduating. And so
fired their
they're one of
the
they're going to be on the side. I'm if they come in winning more than 3 conference games, man, that would put me on where I'm probably going to put them as 3 conference games. But I think that's more than what Dan Holgerson's going to do in Houston. Welcome back, Dan Holgerson. Thought we got rid of you, man, but you came crawling back in a different way. But man, speaking of Dan Holgerson, when there was the rumor mill going around that he could have came to Texas Tech, I know we had conversations. We were like, why were we not there? Why were we not the highest seat bidding for him? But man, looking back, even with our 3 less than fortunate years with the good guy Matt Wells, I'm still glad that we don't have Dan Holgerson. But
yeah, I think I am too.
Not that I have any ill feelings.
I was gonna say he's not a bad
him.
coach.
Yeah. No. What he did with West
what
Virginia
we have
was,
with Joey right now is just such a highlight of, like, I don't know. It's just what we had to do to get here is worth it.
I'm with you, man. Good, Joey McGuire. Please bring us to the promised land, my friend, because we are due. We as a fan base, we are due for some good karma recently, and I am praying every day that he can lead us back into the prime, back where I think we deserve to be, and where we should belong. And man, if there was one season to wish it for, man, this is the season. This is the season. You send this out with Texas still in our conference. We send them out with their tails between their legs while we head to a national championship. I know that's the Kool-Aid that we're all drinking right now, but you tell me that wouldn't be the best case scenario ever.
Oh man,
that absolutely would be the best.
You better believe I'd spend all my money to be there too.
Oh my goodness, I would sell everything. I would sell everything. There would be nothing stopping me from being there. That's what I'm praying for this year.
I know you even told me on our Texas Tech podcast, you were like, man, you're being too negative. And I'm like, I got us going to 8-4, and it's like, no, we're going to the national championship this year.
Oh
Brady was
man,
closer. Brady was on board. He's like, we're winning at least 10 games.
I'm with Brady, and I think I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter recently about these are the things that have to go right for Texas Tech to win a Big 12 championship, for us to be in contentions for the conversation for being in the national championship. I'm on the opposite side. I think there are 20 things that have to go wrong for us to not win one. And man, so I'm praying every day that the things that need to go wrong to keep us out of the championship, the Big 12 championship, where we rightly deserve to be this season, where I think we're going to end up at, it's a longer list than the things that I believe that have to go right for us to be in there.
I would love that. I'm on board. I want to be on the hype train, but I've been burnt so many times.
I know,
I'm just
man.
like,
And that's
8 wins, I'll be happy. Like that's the point where I'm at in my life right now.
Man, I can't say I wouldn't say that you could have a great season with 8 wins. It would have to be the specific 8 wins of our choice to make it a great season.
Exactly.
But
last year was a great season.
Last year was
exactly
such a great
how
season.
I would have picked it.
Absolutely. I know. I think Baylor's the only game that we would have switched, or maybe TCU. But if that would have kept them out of the championship, if we had to take losses, I don't know if I would take that away from them. But again, I'd never root for TCU. No, I'm with you, man. And I understand your pessimism, because we have.
I'm not pessimistic. I think we're a great team.
Well, forgive me. I don't know if pessimism is like the wrong word, but your pessimistic outlook foreshadowing that you are currently with because of the recent history of terribleness that we've had. I'm just saying, you are a fair critic, and you are coming in with realistic expectations, unlike those in the 40 acres every single season. But hey, when you recruit a top 10 class every single season and you still can't win the conference that you claim that you're better than, I mean, hey, well, since 2009, but hey.
Yeah, and with that, I guess we can end it. Cody, you want to plug anything? Your Twitter account or?
Oh, yeah, at me, at Cody Dawson, CODYDAWSON 47, Dragon of the West, Texas. Brett, thank you so much for having me on, man. Always a pleasure talking with you.
Dude, it's been great. And everyone, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, give us 5 stars and catch back up. Next week, we'll definitely have a team. It's a toss-up between TCU or West Virginia. We're trying to figure out. So wait for that, and thanks for listening. See y'all.